Okay, welcome to Mitchell's How to Build a Go-Kart. This is the homemade thing. Served us pretty well so far. Take you through the details of it. We have a chassis. We started off by building the chassis from front to back. You're looking at about 1600, and from side to side about 400 wide. The steel itself of the chassis is the 50 by 25 or 2 by 1 inch by 3 mil thick. Through the centre of the chassis we've welded 20 by 20 steel just to basically put a bit of strength and rigidity into it so she doesn't twist too much when she's going along. So building the chassis is pretty straightforward. It's just a straight rectangle thing with a few little sort of modifications along the way. Next we worked on the rear axle. A lot of the parts from this was from a ride-on mower. The rear axle is actually off the ride-on mower. It was originally about 500 long, but we welded an extension onto it, an extra 300, basically to give it less chance of tipping over when flying around the paddock. The wheels themselves, they're 8-inch wheel hubs. They're off the ride-on-mower as well, so they've serviced pretty well. We had to remanufacture some of the hubs inside because of the power this thing seems to have. It seems to chew them up a bit, but it seems to be doing all right. Okay, the front of the Kart, that's actually off a ride-on as well, but you can basically design one yourself. It's nothing much to it. All you really need is basically the steering arms and make sure you get your pivot points right. There's also this thing about, I think it's called Arkman's principle or something. Whenever you do your steering, you've got to make sure you've got like a triangulation to the centre of your back axle, so make sure that's all correct. You can probably look that up on Google or something. In terms of distance of the front, it's about 600, 650 wide, but once again it's a case of whatever you design yourself, you just make it to suit. The pedals, they're just 20 by 20 steel for your clutch and your accelerator, and that was just an old cutting board that we just cut up and screwed onto there so your feet have a bit of grip. The brake itself, that's just a hand brake off a motocross bike. You can see the handle there. It's probably the back brake because it's got quite a long what do you call it, tube for the. Okay, so with regards to the steering wheel itself, it's just off the old ride-on mower as well. We just welded a bit of 20 by 20 tube just to hold it in place. Steering itself is basically wherever you sit and feel comfortable. This here is probably about 500 long, 500 mil. Basically it's a universal rubber joint there, so you can basically bend it to wherever you want. From the joint back to your steering arm, that's probably looking at about 150 to 200 mil. Once again, it's just a case of whatever sort of suits your own needs. You know, some people can be shorter or taller, longer. So this is basically suited for a 15-year-old at this point in time. Okay, the engine, it's a Lyphon 125 big bore race engine. We just got that off eBay. It was about 300 bucks. The engine itself seems to work pretty well. There's a bit of a leak there, but that's nothing much, just a new gasket. Bolting the engine in, we basically, because it is technically off a motorbike engine, rather than actually bolting it from underneath, we actually bolted it from the top, so it hangs down. So we welded this frame together. Frame's probably about 500 high off the chassis and 400 wide generally, whatever the width of the chassis is. We welded it to the outside. The sprocket, I think it's about a 15 tooth sitting behind here, and the big one's probably about a 68 or 70. It's about 200 mil diameter. So basically gear ratio, however you want it sort of set up. The gearing for this, it's opposite to probably a lot of motorbikes. Seems to be, rather than sort of 4 up, seems to be 4 down. So when we put this engine on, we had to redesign the gearing. So this is the gear here. We basically just welded on a piece of steel here and basically have the pivot point up high, so it works in a reverse motion rather than actually being sitting up here. It's now sitting down there, so still serve the same purpose. So basically when you're driving, you're going shifting down like you would a normal car. Okay, fuel, that's just off a push mower and a bit of 4mm PVC pipe going direct down because it's basically gravity fed. We've got to try and keep that up high. Finally, we've got probably the seat. The seat's just off an old school chair, so you can find them cheap as. And then when we actually finish it off, just running the cables underneath. You see these cables here, they're probably not the best, but they do the job. That one's starting to strip a bit, but you can just find a bit of cable, go down to your local hardware, get something, there's no problems there. So overall, it's been pretty cheap to build, excluding the engine itself. We've probably gotten away for under $200 to build this. It's all about having fun really, on the cheap. So, big paddock is probably the only other essential thing that you need, so you can actually give it a bit of a flogging. So enjoy.